President Lee Jae-myung is stepping up efforts to fast-track his three flagship mega projects, with the president's office confirming the Southwest Semiconductor Cluster will be built on the site of the Gwangju Military Airport. Korea has officially launched around-the-clock weekday trading in its foreign exchange market, marking a major step in its push to boost the global competitiveness of the Korean won. 11 days after Venezuela's devastating earthquakes, rescue efforts are giving way to recovery as authorities begin burying unidentified victims and shift their focus from searching for survivors to clearing debris and recovering bodies. President Lee Jae-myung has stressed the importance of speed in carrying out the nation's ambitious investment projects, calling for a faster administrative action. An airbase in the southwestern city of Gwangju has also been chosen as the site for a new chip cluster. Our Yoon Jung-min starts us off.
Speed will be the key to success amid fierce global competition. That was President Lee Jae-myung at a follow-up meeting on Monday with related agencies and private companies over the chip and AI mega projects announced last week.
누가 얼마나 더 빨리 선점하느냐, 누가 더 빠르냐로 결판이 나는 것 같습니다. 그야말로 오직 속도전이 중요하다 말씀을 다시 한번 드립니다.
The president instructed officials to consider allowing skipping an environmental impact assessment when investors seek to build facilities in an area where an assessment has been already made. He also called for the need to implement administrative procedures simultaneously, not in consecutive order, and to preemptively secure land, power, and water. The government has vowed full support using excess tax revenues recently generated from the chip sector.
이번이 기회입니다. 새로운 대한민국, 신대한민국의 출발점을 우리가 만들어내야 될 것입니다. 우리 앞에 놓인 이런 역사적 과제를 반드시 성공시킬 수 있도록.
On Monday, the Blue House announced that the Gwangju Air Base has been chosen as the site for a new chip cluster in the southwest, saying the location had been favored by companies.
The military airport in Gwangju covers about 8.3 million square meters of land available for use. The land has already been flattened, so the time for construction will be saved.
President Lee will personally preside over monthly meetings on the mega projects, while a dedicated task force will be set up at the presidential office. The president also pushed back against critics, saying it was contradictory to complain about discrimination against other areas over the selection of the investment sites, while claiming that the projects are impossible to be realized. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung and new Prime Minister Han Sung-suk held their first weekly meeting over lunch at the Blue House on Monday. According to the Prime Minister's office, the two discussed Han's four key priorities: accelerating the AI transition, streamlining regulations, fostering entrepreneurship, and expanding policies for young people. President Lee called on the new Prime Minister to drive innovation across the government, drawing on her decades of private sector experience in AI and information technology. The meeting is intended to share views on pending issues and coordinate policy responses between the Blue House and the cabinet. Korea has launched around-the-clock weekday trading in its foreign exchange market to boost the global appeal of the local capital market and the Korean won. Our Baek Joo-hee has more.
Korea officially launched a 24-hour foreign exchange trading system on Monday. Previously, $1 trading was strictly limited to just 6.5 hours a day, closing at 3:30 p.m. Under the new system, the trading now runs from 6 a.m. on Monday to 6 a.m. on Saturday, with trading available even on public holidays except for weekends and New Year's Day. On the first day of this new system, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and Economy Gu Yun-chol and Deputy Government of the Bank of Korea Kwon Min-soo visited the dealing room to offer encouragement. Minister Gu emphasized that the 24-hour market serves as a launching pad for the won's global leap. He noted the opening reflects strong confidence in Korea's economy, driven by record current account surpluses. The move also meets rising foreign demand ahead of the nation's inclusion in the World Government Bond Index. The government expects this new system to expand the investor base and attract long-term global capital. The system is also expected to enable local exporters to exchange currency in real time, protecting them from overnight financial shocks. Meanwhile, this reform comes as the nation battles persistent high exchange rates. In the second quarter of this year, the average $1 rate topped the 1,500 won mark for the first time since the Asian financial crisis, reaching 1,501.931. However, thin overnight trading volumes could spark initial volatility before the system fully stabilizes.
As the 24-hour market creates an environment where foreign capital flows and currency conversions can occur without limits, it appears highly likely that market volatility could increase significantly.
In response, Bank of Korea Deputy Governor Kwon pledged to strictly monitor the market around the clock and supply liquidity if necessary. To make local trading even easier for foreign markets, the government will introduce an offshore won settlement system by January 2027, so international banks can transfer the Korean won overseas. 백주희, Arirang News.
It's a crucial week for the semiconductor industry, as Samsung Electronics is set to release its second quarter preliminary earnings, while SK hynix prepares for its upcoming U.S. listing. Lee Ju-yeon has the details.
After weeks of volatility in global chip stocks, attention is turning to a series of major events this week that could prove pivotal for Korea's semiconductor industry. Samsung Electronics is set to announce its second quarter preliminary earnings on Tuesday. Later in the week, SK hynix will list its American Depository Receipts, or ADRs, in the U.S. on Friday, giving American investors easier access to the Korean chipmaker shares. Taiwan's TSMC will also release its June revenue figures the same day. Samsung Electronics, the world's largest memory chip maker, is expected to report one of its strongest quarterly performances, supported by solid growth in its semiconductor business. According to market consensus, Samsung Electronics is expected to report an operating profit of about $56.4 billion or 86 trillion Korean won for April to June quarter when it announces preliminary earnings on Tuesday. That will be well above its first quarter operating profit of roughly $37 billion or 57.2 trillion won. On Friday, SK hynix will begin trading its American Depository Receipts, or ADRs, on the Nasdaq in a listing expected to raise up to $29 billion or around 44 trillion Korean won. Although SK hynix is a major player in the high bandwidth memory, or HBM, market, its shares have so far been traded only in Korea, meaning overseas investors have had to trade during Korean market hours and deal with foreign exchange cost. The Nasdaq ADR listing is expected to address these challenges by making the stock more accessible to global investors. Meanwhile, the week's major chip-related events extend beyond Korea. Taiwan's TSMC is scheduled to release its June revenue figures on Friday, offering another important gauge of global semiconductor demand. Ahead of a key week for the semiconductor industry, Korea's benchmark KOSPI fluctuated around the 8,000 mark during Monday's trading session. The market closed at 8,051 as Samsung Electronics gained while SK hynix fell, leaving the two chip giants moving in opposite direction. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
Gasoline prices at pumps across Korea have fallen into the 1,800 won range per liter, driven by the seventh round of fuel price caps and stabilizing global oil prices. According to the Korea National Oil Corporation, the nationwide average price of gasoline stood at 1,897.06 won per liter as of 4 p.m. on Monday, while prices in Seoul reached 1,929.52 won per liter. This marks the first time in more than 3 months that the national average has fallen below 1,900 won. Gasoline prices have stayed above the 2,000 won range for around 2 months due to tensions in the Middle East before gradually coming down. Diesel prices are also continuing to decline, with a nationwide average falling to 1,886.11 per liter. Now, in Seoul, diesel was recorded at 1,914.11 per liter. The search for survivors is winding down in Venezuela, where response efforts have entered a new phase, 11 days after twin earthquakes devastated the country. Kim Do-yeon reports.
The death toll from Venezuela's twin earthquakes has reached 3,342 as of Sunday local time, marking one of the worst seismic disasters in Latin American history. 11 days after the June 24th double shocks, the focus on the ground has shifted from searching for survivors to debris removal and body recovery. International rescue operations are wrapping up, with only 25 of the original 77 foreign teams remaining as the United Nations hands over coordination control to local civil defense authorities. The scale of the destruction is immense, the authorities confirming 856 buildings are damaged, including 190 total collapses. In the hardest hit coastal region of La Guaira, officials buried 150 unidentified victims in individual graves on Sunday while families keep watch over collapsed structures. The government faces mounting public anger over what residents and international aid organizations describe as a slow and inadequate initial response. Speaking at an Independence Day military ceremony in Caracas, interim President Delcy Rodriguez pushed back against critics and dismissed warnings of potential civil unrest. To handle the logistical crisis, Rodriguez ordered newly graduating military ensigns to deploy directly to temporary shelters and medical facilities in La Guaira. She also announced a permanent structural change to the military's role in domestic disasters, ordering the immediate creation of a specialized task force.
I have instructed the Ministry of Defense to create a special emergency task force to respond to disasters of this nature, which will be named after Grand Marshal of Ayacucho, Antonio José de Sucre.
The task force faces a catastrophic recovery landscape. In the Carabayeda district of La Guaira alone, officials estimate the disaster generated 1.25 million metric tons of debris. While the official figures record 16,470 people injured and 17,345 homeless, the actual toll is expected to rise sharply. Unofficial citizen-run tracking networks still list more than 31,000 people as missing. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO Summit, will be held in Ankara, Turkey this Tuesday. Amid growing tensions between the U.S. and its European allies, the alliance's unity will be put to the test. Hong Se-jung has more.
Leaders from NATO's 32 member states will gather in the capital of Turkey this week to discuss key issues, including defense spending and the Ukraine war against Russia. The White House says U.S. President Donald Trump will arrive on Tuesday and is scheduled to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday. Growing tensions between the U.S. and its NATO allies have fueled concerns over Washington's commitment to the alliance, casting doubts on what the summit can ultimately achieve.
I just want loyalty. We're so loyal to them. We're always fighting for them. We have thousands of troops all over Europe. In Germany, we have 50,000 troops.
According to a U.S. official familiar with the matter, AP reports that Trump and Zelensky's discussion on Wednesday will address efforts to end the war in Ukraine. Following the meeting, Trump is expected to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin to explore a possible path toward achieving peace. Another key issue on the agenda is defense spending. Washington has repeatedly criticized European allies for failing to meet NATO's defense spending target. However, the European allies have pushed back, pointing to what they call the Trump trillion, a chart showing that NATO allies and Canada have committed more than $1.2 trillion in additional defense spending since 2017. Tensions within the alliance have deepened further as the European members have been reluctant to back the United States during the recent US-Iran conflict. In response, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has highlighted Europe's growing contribution to the alliance, with a backlog of more than $300 billion in defense orders and as many as 5,000 U.S. military aircraft operating from bases in Europe ahead of the ceasefire in April. Still, Trump has repeatedly threatened to withdraw the U.S. from NATO and reduce the number of American troops and military assets stationed in Europe, raising questions about the alliance's unity. With key issues such as defense spending and the war in Ukraine high on the agenda, this year's NATO Summit is expected to put the alliance's unity to the test. Hong Seo-jung, Arirang News.
The Rim of the Pacific, the world's largest international maritime warfare drill, is ongoing around the Hawaiian Islands. And the addition is all the more significant to the ROK Navy, which has taken the role of the Combined Force Maritime Components Commander. Our Kim Bo-kyung follows this report from Hawaii.
Naval forces from 30 nations convened around the Hawaiian Islands, advancing towards a shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific region. They came together for the Rim of the Pacific, the world's largest multinational maritime military training event. Marking its 30th edition this year, RIMPAC features 30 surface ships, 5 submarines, around 200 aircraft, and 30,000 personnel. On board the USS Essex of the U.S. Amphibious Fleet, one task force commander highlighted the importance of the drill, underlining that the region constitutes nearly 2/3 of the world's economy and is home to over half of the world's population.
And by integrating our forces, we ensure our collective ability to deter aggression, prevent coercion, and protect the global supply chains and lines of communications that help sustain our interconnected economies and our continued prosperity.
This year's RIMPAC exercise is all the more meaningful to the ROK Navy as Korea assumed the role of Combined Force Maritime Component Commander. Dubbed the Fortress on the Sea, the Navy's most advanced Aegis destroyer, the ROK's Cheongdo the Great, is making its RIMPAC debut as the South Korean Navy makes history as the first from Asia to command the exercise's Maritime Task Force. Taking part in simulated air defense warfare training, the crew in the warship's command and control center shot down incoming enemy missiles with SM-2 surface-to-air missiles. ROK's Cheongdo the Great is not the only core asset from Korea that's taking part in the drill. The ROK's Dosan Anchangho is docked at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in Hawaii. The country's 3,000-ton submarine sailed across the Pacific before joining RIMPAC after completing a combined naval exercise with Canada in early June.
With some of our finest assets here, our multinational partners can see how far the ROK Navy has advanced. Serving as the Combined Force Maritime Component Commander, I can also see how much the Navy's global stature has grown.
With state-of-the-art assets in place, the ROK Navy will continue to demonstrate its capabilities as RIMPAC continues through July 31st. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Honolulu.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. For that, we have our sports editor, Paul Nietzsche, joining us in the studio. Welcome back, Paul.
Hello, thank you.
Paul, I understand the Korea Football Association chief has stepped down eventually.
Right, yes, Jong Mong-gyu has announced his resignation. He did that today.
Right.
As reported by Yonhap, the KFA said Monday that Jong has submitted his formal resignation letter earlier today. In a statement, he said that he shoulders major responsibility, but that he had pursued nothing but development and glory for Korean football. At the end of May, Chong announced his intention to step down after the World Cup. He'd been in charge since January 2013. Meanwhile, it was announced on Friday that Korean football legend Park Ji-sung will co-head a new government-formed committee to reform Korean football. The new head coach search will begin when the application window opens on August the 26th.
Well, speaking of the World Cup, it's been one of some surprise results, hasn't it?
Yes, some upsets and some very near misses for some of the tournament favourites. Cape Verde pushed holders Argentina extremely close to an upset on Friday in the round of 32. The World Cup debutants took Messi and company to extra time following a 1-1 draw, coming back from behind twice. Argentina eventually won 3-2. But Brazil, one of the favourites, were unable to avoid an upset, losing 2-1 to Norway in the round of 16 on Sunday. Co-host Mexico were knocked out by England on Sunday in the round of 16. Despite the altitude of Mexico City dominating much of the build-up, England won 3-2 to reach the quarters and will face Norway. In other news, USA forward Folarin Balogun has had his red card suspension lifted following calls made to FIFA from President Trump. Balogun was shown a red card against Bosnia and Herzegovina for serious foul play following a VAR review. Belgium, who USA play next, have released a scathing statement to express astonishment, saying the decision is a direct violation of FIFA's own rules. They'll be able to appeal.
Well, controversial. Sticking with football, the K-League season resumed over the weekend. Tell us more.
It did, and there were some upsets in the K-League as well, but not at Sangam, where FC Seoul earned a 1-0 win over Incheon United. Jong Sung-won's goal 9 minutes from time moved Seoul 8 points clear at the top of the table, with Seoul aiming for a first K-League title in 10 years. The surprise came in Jeonju. Reigning champions Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors lost 2-1 at home to Gangwon. Elsewhere, Daejeon remain looking for a first home win of the season following a 2-2 draw with top-flight newcomers Bucheon FC 1995. Pohang Steelers came back from behind to beat FC Anyang 3-2, despite being a man down. Gwangju FC versus Ulsan HD and Gimcheon Sangmu versus Jeju SK both ended 1-1.
I see. And finally, to baseball, what can you tell us about Koreans in MLB?
Well, there's been some hitting streaks extended and some losing streaks coming to an end. Lee Jung-hoo of the San Francisco Giants on Sunday extended his hitting streak to 4 games with a clutch 2-out single in the 9th inning. He finished 1 for 5, but the Giants lost 7-6 to the Colorado Rockies. Meanwhile, Song Sung-moon helped the San Diego Padres snap an 8-game losing streak by going 1 for 3 with a walk, 2 stolen bases, a run scored, and several standout defensive plays in a 5-2 win over the Los Angeles Dodgers. But Kim Ah-sung of the Atlanta Braves has been placed on the injured list for 10 days due to a finger issue. And US media outlets are reporting that Go Woo-seok has been traded to the Minnesota Twins from the Detroit Tigers.
Alrighty, Paul. Thanks for that as always. I'll see you next Monday.
Yeah, thank you.
Tomorrow, muggy conditions will continue across inland areas nationwide. Feels like highs will climb above 33 degrees Celsius in parts of the central and southern regions and top out 31 degrees elsewhere. As muggy weather continues, heat advisories are in effect for parts of the central and southern regions. Meanwhile, more rain is on the way nationwide tomorrow. The heaviest rainfall will likely target northern Gyeonggi-do and northern Gangwon-do provinces, where some places could see more than 80 millimeters of rain. Typhoon Bobby, the 9th named storm of the season, is strengthening over waters near Guam and continues to move north. There is still a chance it could affect Korea, so be sure to keep an eye on the latest forecast. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 24 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon 22, Busan 23 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 30 degrees, Daegu 33, Jeju 31 degrees. Looking ahead, get ready for a week of alternating rain and muggy summer weather. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.